A rabbi one Saturday gets up in the synagogue and says, today I'm only going to focus on my talk for one person. This one person is not a holy Jew of the synagogue. He was the thief, the ganav of the synagogue. He says, you know what? The shul always feels uncomfortable when he's around. He steals from people. Maybe this week I'll give a speech and he'll change. So he gets up and the rabbi was on mark that week and he hits a home run. That night, the rabbi gets a knock on his door. He opens the door and who's standing there? The town's thief. And he has a few shopping bags. Comes into the rabbi's office with the bags. Says, Rabbi, these are the stuff I've stole the last week. You really inspired me. I really want to change. The rabbi's feeling so good about himself. He says, of course, now you have to go to the homes and you got to return all the stuff to them. He says, absolutely. Rabbi, thank you so much for inspiring me. And he leaves the rabbi's office. An hour later, the rabbi leaves his own office and he wants to go up to his bedroom. And he's passing the front door and he notices his gold clock, his beautiful gold clock that was passed down from hundreds of years in his family is missing. He says, oh my God, I just saw it here when I opened the door for this ganav and now it's gone. He must be the one. He's so angry, puts on his coat, runs to the person's house, knocks on his door, and he opens the door and he asks the rabbi, how can I help you? He says, did you steal my clock? He says, yes. He says, I don't understand. I thought you told me you were so inspired and you changed. He says, Rabbi, you're right, but business is business. One of the greatest things that we try so hard is to change. But a lot of times we feel it's too late. We already messed up. We don't have a second chance. Or a lot of times we may feel that it's very difficult for us to change. Because right now I may be in a mood of doing certain things, but the next day my mind is going to start thinking about something else. As soon as my mind goes elsewhere, it's hard for me to change. You know the feeling. That we go through these moments of inspiration and the next day our head is thinking elsewhere and then our mind already travels elsewhere and we do things differently. So once someone came to the Holy Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Chassidic movement, and said, I can't take it anymore. All day I pray to that my mind should only think positive and holy thoughts. And all day in my mind, I can't control it. You can't control your mind, right? And so many thoughts come into my head and it takes me off track. So he says, you know what? The Baal Shem says, you want to get the answer? Go to such person's house. He'll give you the answer. So it was over the next town. It was midwinter. Traveled horse and buggy. It was very cold. He comes to the person's house. It's late at night. And he knocks on the person's door. There's no answer. A few minutes later, he knocks again. No answer. So he's really getting frustrated. He goes to the window. He sees the light is on. They have the candle burning. And he can't understand. It's the middle of the night. It's freezing cold. He hears someone knocking on the door. Why did you open the door? It's not like today's days. Someone knocks on the door. You call the police. Those days was common. People knock on the door. You open the door, you bring him in, you give him a hot cup of tea, you let him sit by the fireplace. Here, this person doesn't let me in. Couldn't understand it. Standing there a half hour. And he didn't want to give up because he really wanted the answer in life, because he wanted the answer. How could he control his thoughts? His thoughts keep derailing him. So, after a half hour, this individual opens the door. He says, what took you so long? Why did you wait a half hour? He says, because I wanted to teach you, I am the boss of this house. And I control who I want to let in and who I don't want to let in. At that moment, he understood the answer why he came there. He's telling him that we are in control over our body. We are in control over our mind. And we have control of what we're going to let in and what we're not going to let in. But here is the secret. The Alter Rebbe, the founder of the Chabad Chassidic movement, in the Tanya, he says that we don't control actually the first thought. What does that mean? If you're walking down the street and you see something, your mind is going to go right away to a certain place. If right away you think a certain thing, whatever it may be, fill in whatever you want right now to what I mean, that you don't control. That's your natural thing, the way you think right away. You walk by a bakery, you see a delicious cinnamon bun. Right away, you don't have control if you're going to think about, I wish I could eat it. But you do have control if you go at that moment, the second thought, to allow yourself to keep thinking about it. Because you could right away say, you know what? I'm not thinking about it. I want to think about something else. I want to think about a holy thought, about my family, and you could move your mind elsewhere. And the same thing is everything else in life. When we read a certain thing, or see a certain thing, or have a certain conversation, or someone says a certain thing to you, right away your mind will think of something. That, okay, you can't control. But if you're going to take that thought and allow yourself to continue to think about it, that you do have control. Remember the days there used to be pop-ups on the computer? We don't have control if the pop-up is going to come. That we don't have control. The pop-up will come. But if you're going to click on the pop-up and follow where that takes you, that you have control over. It's like going on Facebook. You go through social media. Videos come up. You don't have control over it. They send it your way. And you're going to see it. But you have control if you're going to click on it and follow it. That's the same thing with our thoughts. And that is the same thing, the thought of us changing. In order to change, the first step you need to do is control what you're thinking. Because you're right. Many times we feel a certain way, that we want to live our life a certain way, but then the next morning, let's say you want to exercise, you want to go to synagogue, you want to study Torah, but the next morning your mind thinks, forget about it, or whatever it may be, where your mind takes you. But no, you may have that initial thought, but then right away you could control and stop thinking about that and move your mind to another place. That you have control over. But then comes the question that maybe it's too late. Maybe we've done so much damage it's not possible to change. Maybe, we should have done this years ago. So today's day, this Friday, has tremendous energy that tells us that you should know that it's never too late. Do you know that today is a special holiday? Today's holiday is called Pesach Sheni, the second Pesach. What is Pesach Sheni? You don't find a second Rosh Hashanah, a second Yom Kippur. What is Pesach Sheni? So the story goes the time of the Torah of the Bible, when the Jewish people, a year after left Egypt, God said, I want you once again to bring a Korban Pesach, to bring a Paschal lamb. Now there were a group of Jews that came to Moses and says, we got a problem. We would love to bring the Paschal lamb, but we can't. Why? Because we're impure. The law is that you can only bring the Paschal lamb if you're poor. Why were they impure? Because they were carrying the coffin of Joseph. And most of you know that when you go to a cemetery after the funeral, you wash your hands. Why? Because a cemetery, a place of death, is a place of impurity, which we're not going to get into right now, the details of why. So they come to Moses and says, we would like to bring the Paschal lamb, but we can't because we're impure. So Moses says, you have a good question, let me ask God. So God says, no problem. In a month from today, they have a second chance. And not only them, but also if a Jew that intentionally didn't bring the Korban Pesach, this group didn't have a choice because they were impure. But what happens if there's a group of Jews that said, you know what, Pesach, we just don't have time to bring the Paschal lamb, not because we're impure or we're lazy, I'm giving you a second chance. The question is why? Why this story was a second chance? You don't hear if you can't keep Yom Kippur 1 year this Tuesday, you could do it you could do it on Thursday. No, Yom Kippur is Tuesday, it's Tuesday. It's every Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is on a Sunday and a Friday, that's when Rosh Hashanah is. You can't say, well, I'm going to make up for it in 2 weeks later if I missed it, or Sukkot. No, it has to be those days. But why Pesach is different? And the answer is because on Pesach, what happened by this story? It wasn't that God told the Jewish people, we came on our own. And we said, we want to change, we want to have an opportunity to bring the Korban Pesach, the Paschal lamb. When it comes from us, God says, I'll always give you a second chance. And there's many stories, the Talmud tells us that people, the whole life, they may have not lived a life the way a Jew should live, but the last moment they repented, and in that moment they passed away like a tzaddik. And that teaches us the power of tshuva, repentance. That if we really want to repent, we never say it's too late. You always have a second chance. That's what this holiday today teaches us. Pesach Sheni, we're supposed to eat matzah. We don't do the whole Seder, don't worry about it, you don't have to clean up your house. But what it teaches us is that we always have a second chance. But what we need to want is we need to want to change. And what's the first step of wanting to change? Is controlling what we think about. Because our thought controls our speech and controls our action. That comes number one. And how do you control your thought? Like I said before, your first thought you have no control over, but you have control over after that. Are you going to continue thinking about it? So if your head isn't studying Torah, if your head is in positive places, if your head isn't thinking, being around positive, reading positive articles, then it's going to affect you in a positive way. But if your head is in the gutter, then it's going to affect you in the gutter. So my dear friends, let's take advantage of this Pesach Sheni. Number one, it should inspire us that it's never too late. We're sitting home with the corona now because of the pandemic, thinking about life. We come out of this, it's never too late, we could always change. And the first place we should change is the way we think. And the way we should change the way we think is what we allow our head to be filled with. Let's take advantage of this moment. Good Shabbos.